Daily Logic Check.
Welcome to Daily Logic Check. I'm Elizabeth Vargas.
And I'm Andrew Vargas.
Today we have two exceptional guests. We have Mayor O'Neill of Orange County with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. And we also have the founder of Patron Tequila, Paul Mitchell Hair Systems, John Paul DeJoria.
Hey, my pleasure being here with you again.
Thanks for coming
You're welcome.
back. You loved Andrew and my podcast, our lifestyle podcast, so much that you came back.
Well, you guys are so real. Like, you say it like it is. There's no baloney and there's no fake news on what you do. And you talk about things that interest everyday people today.
Yeah.
And that interests me because I'm still an everyday person.
You are. And one thing that I wanted to go over today, and I'm very honored to have both of you in the same room. Mayor O'Neill, I'm very proud to be a resident of Orange County. You and the leaders of Orange County have done such an exceptional job with the environment here, the safety here, first responders. I like to accredit to you're a lawyer, first off.
I am, yeah. Professionally, I'm a lawyer. I still practice.
Yes. And what was the firm? Can you mention the
Sure.
firm?
My firm is Ross, Wolcott, Tynert, and Prout. I'm a business litigation attorney.
Yes. Business litigation, John Paul. You know those ones very well.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
But you're also on the finance committee for Orange County, correct?
For the city of Newport Beach.
City of Newport Beach.
That's right. And I also I was also the chairman of the finance committee for the transportation corridor agencies. So those toll roads that you jump on, a multi-billion-dollar agency, I was actually the chairman for that as well.
So you know how to budget.
Very well.
So this is...
He's a businessman.
He's a businessman.
That's what the country needs more is business people that understand how to budget and spend money properly.
Yes.
Good for you, Will.
Thank you.
I read a lot about your bio and I was so thrilled that you took this interview, and John Paul was very happy to meet you as well because he's also a businessman and knows how to budget. And I think that what we're lacking in California with the deficit is somebody who knows, is budgeting.
Correct.
Because I feel like a lot of our taxpayer money isn't really going to the people like it's supposed to. I feel like it's sort of just flying around in the air. And it seems like Newport Beach somehow the leaders are somehow maintaining the stability here. Why do you think that is, that Newport Beach has such a great atmosphere compared to the rest of the state?
Well, first and foremost, it's really the people who make sure that they are taking care of their communities. So Newport Beach makes a lot of sense if you think of it like a city of villages. Mm-hmm. So Corona del Mar is going to be totally different from Newport Coast, Balboa Island, Balboa, et cetera. But when you can bring all of that together, you start realizing this is a really special place. And people choose to live where they're going to live for a whole bunch of different reasons. But first and foremost, they think of it from the public safety side. And so if cities are really focused in on the things that they're supposed to be doing, the really core things, it's typically going to be public safety, public infrastructure, and good water. So on the public safety side, obviously that's police and fire. And then when you're a beachside community like ours, you're going to have the lifeguards. So if we can create an atmosphere where when you drive into our city, you know you're here because the roads sound different, because they're better. You don't find potholes. When you can create a safe environment, people want to live here, they want to shop here, they want to play here. All of that goes into an environment where you're going to have more people moving here. And when more people move here, you're going to have more property tax. The more property tax you have, the more you can invest into those core functions. And the more you invest in those core functions, the more people want to move here. So it's a really good virtuous cycle that a lot of cities in California have figured out how to break.
I might say also, with all due respect, that it's a little bit above that too, that you're not even mentioning. You're probably a pretty humble guy here, because I know it, and I live in Austin, Texas, okay, because it was in the news for a while. When we were going through a lot of, shall we say, unfortunate, uncomfortable policies that, let's say, the federal government set, okay, you realize they were not right. For example, you are, I believe, one of the first to ever tell your local community, we're entrepreneurs. Let's keep your businesses open. Let's not shut them down. Everyone wear a mask, all these crazy rules, which we found out later were stupid and ridiculous, and they didn't tell us the truth. But yet you were strong enough as a politician to buck it all and say, no, that's not what my people need. That's not what our people know. That's not what I was elected for. I was elected to protect you guys and keep businesses open. And you did that. You bucked, shall we say, the nation, but you were right and they were wrong.
Yeah, so you're talking about my first run as mayor in 2020.
That's correct.
That's right. So when March rolled around and Governor Newsom shut the state down, we were trying to figure out what exactly is happening right now. And so going back to what the role of a city really is, first and foremost, you gotta really look around and say, okay, what do I know and what am I supposed to be doing in that moment? And you got to have a lot of humility. And so we weren't a healthcare agency. We didn't have anybody on the council who were doctors. And even if we did, we shouldn't act that way. And so we said, look, we're going to do everything we can to amplify information that we think is accurate, because even outside of the global pandemic stage, people are going to listen to their doctors when they're healthy and when they're sick. And we have an amazing set of doctors in Newport Beach at Hoag Hospital. So we amplified that information, but we weren't going to go around and tell our businesses stay closed, because there were a lot of cities that shut their businesses down that never reopened.
That's correct.
And there are a lot of people who really put their blood, sweat, and tears into their businesses, especially the local ones. And the people who actually, interestingly enough, reached out to me the most were hairstylists, or salons.
That's how I know about it.
That's right. And so I had a lot of them reaching out to me saying, can we stay open? And I said, we're not going to be the ones that close you.
Right.
And so that really mattered. So here in Newport Beach, during 2020, I think we lost 2 restaurants total.
Really?
Yeah, 2.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, and you saw the Yelp. I think Yelp said that something like half the restaurants in San Francisco Bay Area closed and never reopened, or some unbelievable statistic. And there's a lot of people who put their life savings into that brick and mortar.
Mom stores, that's their family business.
That's right.
What
That's
they
America.
live for.
America entrepreneurs.
That's America, right?
Yeah, and people aren't going to come shop in your store if they don't feel safe.
Right.
So a lot of people invested pretty heavily to make sure that people felt like they were safe going in there. But actually, next door in Costa Mesa did the exact opposite. They actually put a mask mandate in place and put a sign, one of those flashing road signs that said wear a mask or face a fine.
Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah. And so I can tell you right now, we called that our Chamber of Commerce sign, because every time someone drove over to Costa Mesa and saw that, they turned around and came right back into Newport Beach.
Oh, yeah. Well, also what gets me, and I'm all about honesty in government and a constitutionalist, is you're saying things that are 100% correct. No matter what anyone else tells you, you don't follow the masses. And because people forget sometimes that the masses are made up by individuals and not going along with the entire group, which seems to be more popular these days, So, but you stood your ground, and that's a leader. So I appreciate. So when she mentioned to me about you're going to be here, I said, I know a little bit about this fella from hairdressers, from my Paul Mitchell hairdressers, and how they stayed open. And you were allowed to do that. That's leadership. So I salute you. And I'm a firm believer that I think a lot of politicians, no disrespect, should learn a little bit more about leadership. And you don't have to necessarily being a leader to go along with the masses. And finance, gosh, yes, and handling a budget. But yet you incorporated all of that. And politically, you put what the people wanted in, not just what the political view told you to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you're right. It wasn't easy at the time, because there were a lot of people, including actually the governor of California, who were doing press conferences saying that essentially by keeping our beaches open, by keeping our businesses open, we were killing people. He was wrong. And we knew he was wrong.
Yeah.
It made absolutely no sense for a respiratory virus. It made no sense as a matter of public policy to close the largest open recreational space in a beachside community on a respiratory virus. We saw what happened in Los Angeles during that time. It forced people indoors. A lot more people caught the respiratory virus because, of course, they did. So it never made any sense. And so, the problem we got into during that time period was you had a lot of people saying, trust the science, as if that came, down off the mountaintop and tablets, when really what a lot of people were doing was they were putting faith in political science. And that is a really dangerous combination.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people lost trust in institutions during that time period that may never come back.
That is so true. And they see the news, for example, giving them false news. Even with all due respect, our president saying, I got a shot right here, President Biden, I got a shot. You only need to take a shot. You'll never catch it. You'll never spread it. You'll all be okay. So
A false
either
narrative.
he flat out told something that he knew was not true, or someone convinced him that, oh, no, this is true. This is what it has to be. Either way, it was wrong and it hurt our country tremendously. But along the way, we see great examples like people like you and what you've done to really show a great example. Hey, America's individuals. We are the land of the free. We are the home of brave. And America still works. You just got to be individuals and maybe not go along with something because everybody else did.
Well, I think that's right. But to the leadership side, I mean, some of the most amazing leaders we've had are folks who either show by example or they've got humble leadership, where they acknowledge where they know something and when they don't.
Right.
And in that case, I don't think really there were a lot of people who knew exactly what was going on for 300 million plus people, let alone a city of 84,000. I don't know your risk profile. I don't know what your family is going through right now. There are things that are going to be more important than shutting a business down to try to protect someone else. There are things like closing down the schools was a massive mistake. And the amount of learning loss that's going to happen for an entire generation of kids, especially in an area like Los Angeles that was already behind, is catastrophic. And so there are things that we have to look at from a competing public policy standpoint that not very many people wanted to because it was politically expedient, but we're seeing the long-term effects and they're really bad.
You know, people ask me, and I have no answer for it. I'd love to see if you have an answer for it. They said, JP, it appears that, let's say the existing people that are existing, whatever they're doing, seem to be really wanting to divide America up into many pieces and telling America things that aren't true. Is this something that's organized, or what's your feeling on it? Because a lot of things they tell us, we found out not to be true, like the mask and all other things, shutting down the schools, and no disrespect once again, but all the other type of woke things that maybe aren't some of the best things in the world for an 8-year-old to make a decision on, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm taking no offense to anything you're saying, by the way, because I don't agree.
Say,
I'm not the person you're criticizing.
Mayor in Orange County,
I'm talking to
for
other people, you know, no disrespect to other politicians because they obviously go along with what they thought was real, but later they found out it was not real, but they never changed their minds on it or just said nothing about it.
Or they had an investment in that opportunity and they tried to convince us to wear masks because they invested in the company.
Or if they didn't go along with it, they wouldn't have the party's money to be reelected.
Correct.
So
Andrew always says, follow the money.
For we
Follow the money.
What do you see the future for we the people of overcoming things like that happening? Or how do you see our future so we don't get, shall we say, a bunch of BS thrown at us that we go along with because the federal government, the scientists said it was true. We later found out it's not true.
Because they are claiming there's going to be another pandemic.
They keep
An
trying.
organized one.
So,
So there's a lot of answers to that. So the first one is the politics of division have always played well. Going back to the politics of our early founding fathers, you look back and realize that most of the newspapers during that time were actually partisan newspapers that would attack people. And actually you saw some of that if you ever saw the musical Hamilton play out in some of that. So the politics of division are very real. And the main difference now is it's so much easier to amplify and spread misinformation. And also what we've seen, especially now that Elon Musk took over Twitter and you've seen all the Twitter files information and reporting that's going on, a lot of the censorship that has been attempted by various levels of government. So there are reasons why people don't trust the information they're gathering, and there are reasons why we are in a bad situation when it comes to that. So yes, it's a lot easier for a politician to try to sow fear and then try to get you to vote based on that fear than it is to try to do inspirational messaging and talk about it that way. So for example, you take the presidential race right now. I think that, and as we're sitting here right now in mid-July, the President Trump was nearly assassinated, and you see a lot of the discussion already breaking down where the immediate call was let's tone down the rhetoric, and then people brought it right back up.
Yep.
And so it's easier right now, it seems like nationally, to say, yeah, you should vote for me, but you really need to vote against that guy.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's not really how we're supposed to be built. That's not the society that we're supposed to be built on. Because if you go back back into the 80s with President Ronald Reagan, he would talk about the shining the shining city on top of the hill. This aspirational goal of what America not only could be, but should be. And there's a reason, because you go back into our United States Constitution and we're talking about a more perfect union. Because no one argues that when our country was founded, it was perfect or even better than it is right now. But if we can keep moving toward that more perfect union, we're in a much better spot. So I think if we can find elected leaders that inspire us as opposed to demonize us, then we'll be better off.
We uphold the Constitution.
And uphold the Constitution. That would be nice. That would be kind of a baseline, right?
Isn't that kind of where we all started here?
That's exactly right. And then just a second point on that, I mentioned kind of a breakdown in institutional relationships. I think at the national level, most people have lost a lot of faith and trust in the institutions of the presidency and Congress and even in the court system right now. Right. My guess is that the last bastion of institution that people will continue to trust will probably be their city government, because it's the one you can actually reach out and touch. And I'm a fairly large guy. Like I'm right around 6'4".
How tall are you?
Yeah, I'm just right around 6'4", and I'm also kind of wide. But so what that means is when I'm out in the community, especially at the grocery store or something, I'm noticeable. And so a lot of people come up and talk to me and ask me questions. And so that's easier because you can reach out and touch them and talk to them and say things to them. And so I suspect that that'll probably be kind of the last bastion
You run for governor?
of California.
Yeah, why not?
I think what we've seen right now is, especially with the recall attempt on Governor Newsom that didn't succeed. I remember looking at it and saying, if the Los Angeles County looks around right now and says, crime hasn't been like this since the 80s, the murder rates skyrocketing, homelessness, 50% of the unhoused homeless in the country are in California right now, with Los Angeles being the epicenter. Businesses have closed, schools are shut. If Los Angeles County looks at this and says, yeah, we're good, we'll keep doing this, I don't think that we're going to have much of a shot as a state for a while. And that's exactly how they voted. So did the Bay Area. So I think California is going to be an incredibly difficult place to turn around at the state level.
So we'll be the last people to turn around. We're the laughing stock right now, and we're going to be the last people to turn around. So we're going to have.
But you have this beautiful little pocket of nice called Orange County.
Called Newport
Exactly.
Beach.
Newport Beach.
Exactly.
A safe haven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A real one.
Daily Logic Check.
You have a home here. You don't reside here, but you have a home here.
Yeah, holiday home, exactly. on
And
the West
you
Coast,
are
LA.
literally bred here in California. You came from the streets.
Born and raised.
You were an
Homeless,
entrepreneur.
everything else.
Homeless. I mean, your story is incredible. And California was your American dream.
Yes, it was.
How do you think we should be fixing California to build that back up? What do we need to be doing?
Very good question. California, the country and the landscape has not changed.
Okay.
The people and the politics have. And another reason I'm here today is the politics you have going down here in this area is the way California should be. Unfortunately, I would say for the state, they're so embedded and very well organized, shall we say, the opposition, those that are in power right now. They have so many saying, you got to vote this way because they demonize the other guy they're running against and things will be terrible, right? And time after time, they're disappointed, but they don't wake up. They want to be part of the masses. Like when the masses say this, it must be true. Let's go along with them. Yeah, things are hard, but they would be harder with somebody else. But that's not true. It's a matter of if the train and the ride on the train is not a good one, get off the train.
But Andrew
Get off the train. So if I see that, to answer your question, if more people just open their eyes and don't go along with everything that's told to you on media, which is controlled, quite a bit of it is controlled, or what the masses go along with, go with what your heart goes along with. Look around you. Hairdressers do things like that. For example, would you rather be a hairdresser in LA or in Orange County? Well, Orange County, obviously, because the politics are different and they look at the people and they look past what the government tries to maybe put on them that isn't factual. So I think more and more people are opening their eyes up, becoming smarter. And I think we're going to see a future in the state of California, maybe some other troubled states like this that just aren't the same. I'll give you an example. In Austin, Texas, we overcame really, really well homelessness. We built facilities called Mobile Loaves and Fishes. We, the people, did it without government money, where we have, hundreds of homeless people living in houses, having work, having employment, having organic gardens, all of this. We, the people, did it, and it changes the landscape. Opposed to people all of a sudden relying everything on the government. So, of course, they'll vote for the government to get all these freebies. America, to me, is not a land that everything was supposed to be free. If everything is free in life, there are no challenges. Plus, I think Margaret Thatcher said this the best, okay? I heard it years ago and I thought, wow, what a lady. She'll probably be elected. And she did. It was during a time where I believe the Labour Party of England was really letting things up and England was a disaster. She said, look, tax the rich as much as you want. Tax those making money as much as you want. Go for it as much as you want. But what the heck are we going to do when they leave or there's no more money here?
Mm-hmm.
All this expense, we're going to go totally bankrupt. We're all going to
Well,
starve
they all
to
move to
death.
Texas.
Yeah, rather say, anyways. And she made a good point there because if you keep on having handouts, the handout's going to stop eventually, okay? What are you going to do? And it takes away from someone's self-esteem. Now, does this work? I'll give you just one quick example. On a entrepreneur center I built in Austin at the community Mobile Loaves and Fishes, I built a big over $1 million, obviously, Entrepreneur Center, to teach the homeless trades, how to do art, how to do metalwork, okay, how to do landscape, how to do art, I mean, just a matter of things, ceramics, you name it, how to do it, jewelry, right?
Yeah.
They said they're not going to do it. They're homeless people. In the first 18 months, those homeless people that lived in mobile
You
hosted
enabled them to
communication-
succeed.
Yeah, they sold almost $200,000 worth of stuff. They got to keep all the money. You got to give someone the opportunity to go to work and have a house. And we charge rent to be there. If you don't have the money, we help you out with all these other things that you could do and make money at. In other words, let the people be American people and be part of community instead of getting a handout. You go to mobile hosted communities, just to finish this part, the streets there and the houses are spotless because people
Pride.
care. You go to LA or maybe New York or some of these other areas that are really in the wrong direction, and they're filthy and they're terrible. In other words, people deserve to have an opportunity and be treated that way and let them work and not just sit back and get nothing because they feel worthless and they don't deserve that in life.
Well, the most resilient communities are the ones where when a person sees a problem, their first reaction is not someone ought to solve it. It's how can I fix that? And oftentimes that there's this principle called subsidiarity, which basically says every problem should be solved at the lowest level possible. So federal government obviously needs to have a military and control the border and have discussions with foreign countries, and then states, and then counties, and then cities. But most decisions ought to be made by a person and then their family. Right. And so those tend to be the most resilient areas. And look, I agree with you. I mean, we have gotten to this era where a lot of people use the phrase like post-truth and things like that. No, there are very long-standing truths that have been part of communities forever. And so what you were describing is the concept, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Right. Teach a man to fish, he eats forever. And that's the sort of thing that we need to spend a lot more time on thinking about as a community.
Daily Logic Check.
One thing I wanted to touch on, which we're a lifestyle podcast, so we get to interview and meet so many great people, like Still Platt, started Yard House, an amazing entrepreneur. And I get to hear them all talk about, how they had to raise money. They had to then budget that money. They had to spend it wisely. They had to, they spent money on steals like PA, kitchen, staff, in order for it to succeed. And my question to you, being a leader of California, is I feel that the homeless crisis, Andrew touched on this in one of our podcasts, is follow the money. And if we solved homelessness, thousands of people would be out of jobs. So there's no real incentives for us to really solve these issues right now because we've created an industry out of homelessness in California.
There's a lot of people making a really good wage dealing with the homeless problem. And if they fixed it, they'd be out of a job. So there's no incentive to fix it. There's only an incentive to get people to give more money. And they always give this astronomical number that this is how we fix it. When they get that number, but that didn't do it, and we need more because they're getting paid. They just want to, let's say they've only got 5 or 10 more years. They just want to get that money to last. They can retire. So they don't have that motivation to actually solve anything, because if they did, they solve themselves out of a job, which is that's not a good way to run a government.
Well, we're normal people. Like you're leaders. We're kind of the average Joe over here, like paying taxes. And we're like, okay, how much money per homeless person? How many homeless are in California right now? Who has the stats on that?
I believe there are over 180,000 people who are homeless in California.
Okay, 180,000. Out of those people, how much money per person are we giving them? What was the stats on that?
It's pretty stunning because, I'm not sure what it is annually because it's broken down a little bit by city, but in the last 5 years, California has spent $24 billion.
Okay, divide that by 180,000 people. Mm-hmm. Okay, so why is it? We're just sitting here as normal people going, we could put that person in a house for the rest of their lives.
But Seattle,
where is this money going? So Andrew brought it up the other day. He's like, administrative. So don't you think that in order to solve all these issues, we need to start with follow the money? Where is all this money going?
Yeah. So this is one of the main problems of California, and I'm going to come back to this and the homeless issue in just a second. But this is one of the main problems we have in California. We used to have this political dynamic where it was really just two parties. You'd have liberals and conservatives, and they really fought over the scope of government and size of government, but they really wanted government to work at whatever level they decided was the right one. Mm-hmm. And so they cared a lot about outcomes. They didn't care as much about the input. They cared about, are kids learning to read? Are people who are homeless getting off the streets? Are we seeing more and a more prosperous society because of the policy decisions being made at every level of government? We've gotten away from that, especially in California, because we have this third party now of progressives. And progressives have taken over Sacramento and actually have taken over a lot of city councils like Oakland, San Francisco, Los Angeles. And actually, you're starting to see some of them take over the district attorney's offices in LA, Alameda, and San Francisco. And what has happened is, instead of caring about what the outputs are, they only care about what you mean. Like, what's your input? Why do you think this will work? And so they really want to be able to talk about things at a cocktail party and feel good about themselves while all of these things are failing. And so, on the homelessness side of things, $24 billion being spent on something that has gotten worse should be the scandal of the century.
It is. That's what I feel. I feel like we're getting all scammed.
And to a certain degree we are. And in particular, because let's see, in July, so we're about 3 months out right now from finding out that when the state legislature sent in their auditor into Governor Newsom's administration and said, okay, we're going to audit the last 5 years, that $24 billion, find out where it was spent, how effective it was, and how we can do better. The auditor came back and the results were, we have absolutely no idea
where anything went. I watched that.
Yep.
I heard that.
Yes.
I heard that on national news.
Yep. And so, the amazing thing is, as we're sitting here on a Wednesday, literally 2 days ago, we had Tuesday, literally yesterday, the governor actually vetoed a unanimously passed bill that would require him to actually track the money.
Whoa, he vetoed it?
He vetoed it and said, I'm already doing that. It'd be duplicative. We know that's not true because it just happened. I mean, we know it's not true. So the thing is, when we feel like we're being lied to, oftentimes the problem is we are.
Oh, you're good.
Right. But there's so many experiments being done right now in the name of that progressive ideology that are having real effects. So up in Los Angeles, the district attorney is a guy named George Gascon. George Gascon is refusing to charge enhancements. He's trying to make sure that people aren't spending more time in prison. And you're seeing over 30 cities up in Los Angeles County right now vote no confidence in him. I can guarantee you there are not 30 Republican cities in Los Angeles.
Right.
You also had up in San Francisco, they recalled a progressive district attorney. Do you know how far left you have to be to get recalled in San Francisco?
Really far, exactly.
And then the district attorney up in Alameda County, that includes Oakland, also going through a recall. And then up in Oakland City Council, they actually experimented with the defund the police movement, which is unbelievable because they literally took a hashtag on Twitter and said, let's see how it goes. And so
it's unbelievable to me, the thought process that goes into this. It's completely illogical.
It is. And so you see these real world effects of these policies taking place up in Oakland last year during the month of August. It's not good in any month, but in the month of August, if you called 911, you had less than a 40% chance of someone picking up within 15 seconds. In Newport Beach last year, the entire year, you had a 99.8% chance of someone picking up within 15 seconds. And I can tell you right now, 15 seconds when you call 911 is an eternity. An eternity. And you had less than 4 in 10 chance of someone picking up within 15 seconds in Oakland last year. That's insane.
Why do you think it is that the people, for example, of California, all this is going on and they're being, let's say, not told the truth about things, the money being totally wasted, one of the most expensive states to live in for the taxes? Why do you think the people don't open their eyes? Let's say a few of them do, but why don't you think the majority open their eyes and say, hey, we're not being told the truth right now. This is not real. Why do you think that is, sir?
I think it's because what we were talking about earlier, the politics of division. There has been such an amazingly good job of trying to convince people that if you vote for someone who has an R after their name, they are essentially going to be, the future devil spawn. There's been this ability to convince people, yes, it's bad, but it would be way worse if you tried this over here. And that's dangerous for so many different reasons, and it really does lead you down these really bad
Playing
policy.
off fear.
Yeah, it's definitely playing off of fear.
Oh yeah.
Because I have to say, actually, so coming back to Oakland for just a second, the mayor of Oakland had her home raided by the FBI in the last 30 days, by the FBI.
Oh, I didn't know this.
And 4 days of silence later, she did a press conference. And at the press conference, she said that there was essentially a radical group of right-wing forces in the city that she's going to be fighting back against. And I remember looking at that saying, what right-wing forces in Oakland do you have that are so powerful that they got your house raided?
Yeah, really.
That's ridiculous. But that was her natural reaction to a bad situation, is to immediately blame someone on the far right wing.
Correct.
And you sit there and say, no, you've gone too far this time. And so we'll see where this one goes. But no, there's this natural reaction to just demonize someone. And look, I think most people in California, especially people who are conservative, especially at the local level, a lot of us are just sitting here saying, you know what, you go do what you're going to do. My heart breaks for your residents.
Yeah, you do you. We're going to do us.
But I'm going to do everything I can to protect what we have to control here. And then I'm going to do everything I can once we kind of have that base, and we do here. I'm going to do everything I can to go talk to as many people through mediums like this with podcasts. I'm going to go get on TV and talk to people about it. I'm going to do everything I can to let other people know you're not alone in feeling the way that you do. It's not supposed to be like this.
Right. Very good. That's a great message. It's not supposed to be like this. That's one of the best messages I've ever heard, by the way, and great words. I may start coding that myself, just coin it in some of my presentations. It's not supposed to be like this. It really isn't.
But you said the pendulum was going to change. So you told Andrew and I during our first podcast that the transfer of power is coming. And Andrew we had talked too. I'm still flat about this as well. It's like he's like, because I was stressed. I'm like, do I need to take my money out of the banks? What do I do? The world's ending. And he's like, no. It goes on a pendulum. It goes far left and then far right.
Correct.
And we're far left right now. So do you think with this next election, we're going to finally sway where we can start supporting our entrepreneurs again, start supporting our communities, start supporting our children? Or do you think we're just stuck in it for the next 10 years? What are we looking at right
personally,
now?
I think it's above the election. I personally think that people are getting smarter and realizing they've been told things that aren't true. They believe science that isn't real. It was just all manifested for political reasons.
Like fake aliens? Are they real?
Well, I think so. but we could be the aliens. Or the aliens
you
could
two
be
are
right
the
here.
aliens. The leaders are the aliens.
Right here. We could
I'm like, beam me up, Scott.
I think people are getting smarter and little by little realizing it's okay to be wrong about something. What do you think, Will?
Well, it depends. So this kind of comes back to that subsidiary issue where I'm talking about, are we talking national, state, county, local?
National right now.
Well,
I mean, people from all over the country are stressed out, like what's happening with this election. Obviously, the president just got, Trump just got shot.
Yeah.
Because they're worried about this pendulum switching. So something's happening, and I don't know what that is. And I'm just wondering, like, on a national level, in your opinion, because you are a leader and you see the bigger picture, that's why you're the leader, both of you, are we stuck in this for a while? Or
is there a deep state really there that runs some things that we're not aware of, totally aware of?
Well, BlackRock, I heard, was like this big, are we stuck?
They're a financial institution, but as it could be, there's many of them. But it could be that they're getting desperate right now, so they're coming out of the woodwork to do everything they can because they're losing that power of influencing people on things that are not correct.
So it's not the election. You're saying there's another group, maybe.
I think the election is very important. Gosh, yes.
Okay.
We couldn't have another 4 years of what we have. America continuously be destroyed. We couldn't have that. There's got to be something different. But I think people are becoming more awake.
Well. So when we're talking about the assassination attempt,
I can't believe that. I'm still.
Well, so we know that there was a 20-year-old on a roof, right? That's what we know. And I will say, as someone who is out in public office and is fairly has been out there for a while, the lone gunman concern, like someone who is just fixated and decides that today they're going to go after you, that is a real concern for a lot of elected officials. I've had conversations with U.S. senators, congressmen, et cetera. That is a real concern. So in this case right now, the person we know was involved was him. And so kind of pulling back on what should we be concerned about in election context? And I think one of the things is when I know the phrase deep state gets used in a lot of different contexts. I think the biggest concern, frankly, is just how enormous the federal bureaucracy really is in general. And so having the United States Supreme Court actually just kind of formally roll back the Chevron doctrine, which basically put way too much discretion on these agencies that are not elected. No one in there is elected. Right. The only person that they're working for is the President of the United States. And a lot of them are career, which means that even when you switch over the administrations, they're there and they'll outlast the president. And that's not how the society is supposed to work in the first place. So there's too many decisions being made 3,000 miles away from most people that'll never understand, who these people are and why they're making the decisions that they are. So I actually think that maybe we might be in a decent spot right now where people are so terrified. So if you're on the right side, you're so terrified of President Biden, having more power. And if you're on the left side, you're more concerned. You're so concerned that President Trump comes in and is more, has too much power. I think, frankly, if you are worried about someone having too much power, rein the power in and bring it back away from them. And so in this situation, I would love to see administrative agencies get rolled back pretty dramatically in terms of power, scope, and size. So that would be amazing. So I'm hoping that people will wake up to that reality. At the state level, I think we're not going to see that flip back anytime soon. I do hope that we can kind of pull back from the far progressivism, kind of actually at least back toward liberalism.
Right. I feel like it's already pulling back a little bit, right?
I think it is because when people feel threatened, right, their public safety is diminished and threatened, and we are there, all of a sudden you kind of get a lot more focused. Correct. And you start realizing, earlier, it's not supposed to be this way. And so if it's not supposed to be this way, I might want change. And then all of a sudden the elected officials who are in that area say, whoa, you want change? Great. I've been leading on that change forever. They haven't, but they'll say they have. Of course. And so now, that I think we are seeing some of that public policy roll back. But, entrepreneurs are getting crushed in this state. And a lot of people
They're leaving.
They're leaving.
Literally, they're all leaving. And wealthy people, everyone's leaving.
I told a client one time who called me up about an employment matter, and I told him what I thought the answer was going to be, and I double checked it, and sure enough, that was the answer. And the response I got was, there's no way that's true. And I said, look, I've heard it said by another one of my law partners, it is illegal to be an employer in California. Once that's your baseline, everything else makes sense. And it is so much easier to be an employer somewhere else than it is in the state of California. Of course, people are leaving, and it's killing our economy. And when it kills our economy, it kills our public safety, and then you have that broken cycle that we have to work so hard to maintain.
Daily Logic Check.
Well, California is the epicenter for success. People look at California from all over the world as this golden, this gold rush. Like, right, we are, we've got the beach communities, we're a wealthy state. And then this whole thing is happening. And, I heard that Newsom was going to run for president or something. I don't know if that's true or not, whatever. But I was thinking, who would ever elect somebody who can't even run a state? Exactly. And so I'm going to say it flat out. Like, there's no way, if you can't run a state, how are you going to run the country? So regardless if you're left or right, we've got either Biden or Trump. Like, there's no other. I mean, we have Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, independent. Wonderful fellow. Sure, so there's three. Bobby's great. Yeah, I follow his feed and everything. And he's a good guy. And I think that he adds a great dynamic to right or left, or sort of, we need another option, right, so that people don't just go, The Democratic Party did a great job of villainizing the Republican Party. The Republican Party did a great job with villainizing the Democratic Party. But we're now divided. Both parties have used every single thing as far as abortions, black, white. What else have they used? We showed on the last podcast. All the different groups, gay, everything you could imagine. They were just trying to use against each other, and nothing worked. And we're still in the same exact spot of division. So what is going to get us, besides left or right, what's going to get the unity back? I mean, how are we going to build that unity back? That's probably the biggest question in the world. But I see some things, for example, as we all know, I'm an independent. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm independent. But I have some friends, some guys that I support that are Democrats and Republicans both in the state of Texas.
And one particular fellow I really support there that is with the Democratic Party realizes a lot of things that others had said, not necessarily the party, but that some of those in control said aren't right and went totally against them, which is very rare in the Democratic Party. So you're seeing more and more people wanting to find the truth. So again, I'm going back to the more people see the truth and see there is another way, just do the research. God, I was watching the last night, the convention last night, and this lady of multiracial whatever came on and said, I was thinking extremely one way because I was led to believe that way. And I realized that that wasn't the truth. I did the research. It wasn't the truth because my father agreed directly the opposite of me. He said, Sonny, just do the research. What they're telling you is just not right. And she all of a sudden came around and said, yeah, I'm no longer thinking that way because what they told me was not true. So now I'm for Trump, for example. That's just one example. I'm sure there's other examples that what both parties told me is not true. I'm for Bobby Kennedy because Bobby Kennedy seems to be really, really honest. People are looking for the truth today, I think, more and more. But what would change it as a whole? I like the fact of local governments being more responsible for their people and having a final answer. But it's the truth. No, but it's the
No
truth.
pressure.
No, but it's the truth. It is the truth. What do you think some of these answers are that people could go along with and have some hope in?
Oh, well, it's long been said that politics is downstream of culture. So a lot of this really comes down to how you're treating other people and how having the conversation. It's awfully difficult to hate someone you're sitting across the table from. And so one of the things that I view my responsibility as a city council member is to facilitate a lot of these kinds of meetings. And part of the way I do that is frankly by doing things that essentially try to create margin in people's lives. So think of it this way. So if you have a well-run city with good public infrastructure, good public safety, you walk out of your house in the morning, your car's not broken into, so you don't have to deal with that. You drive along the roads, you're not hitting a pothole and having to go to a mechanic. You're having a lot of the things that you expect from a city, because quite frankly, if you're thinking of your city council member too often, they've screwed up. And so if we're in the background doing the things right, you're going to have an additional 15 minutes, hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, whatever you want to do with that time. And I frankly really hope what you're going to do with that time is sit around and talk with one another and learn about each other and have meetings like this where you just kind of hear each other out. I have found that most people generally are kind of between the 35s. If you're using a 100-yard football field analogy, the vast majority of people are between the 35s. Some people want more government, some people want less government, some people want more government in this sphere or versus this sphere. You can kind of work it out and understand where they're coming from. But a lot of our politics right now are controlled by the people between the tens. And because they're the ones that are more interesting to listen to as talking heads on the news at night. They're the ones who will put the most inflammatory things out on Twitter because it gets so many reactions. I think really the vast majority of people just want to know that someone's there working hard for them. They're doing it competently, and they're doing it in a way that, you just kind of want to know it's being done. And also don't talk down to me. Like if you want me to believe you, tell me why. Like give me your thoughts
Talk
on
to me, not down.
Exactly.
To me. Yes.
Yeah. And there are a lot of elected officials right now who genuinely believe that they know what's better for your life than you do.
Mm-hmm.
If they only press this button and turn this knob just a little bit more, we'd eventually get to utopia. It's the exact opposite. The more government in every society we've ever seen on the history of the earth, the more government control there is, the worse off the society is.
Correct.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep, there's a history.
And coming back to Margaret Thatcher, I know I'm going to butcher this quote, but at one point she said, the problem with socialism is you eventually run out of other people's money.
Very true.
And no growth like the American experiment has ever happened in the history of the earth. There is a reason why energy independence matters. There's a reason why entrepreneurialism matters. There's a reason why we don't have crony capitalism. There's a lot of reasons why, because we want to make sure that people as individuals have the dignity and respect that they deserve and the growth that their potential offers them.
I think right now I feel, talking to other entrepreneurs and other business owners and also just people in general, I think we're over, and I'm very grateful for this, we're over the elect that person because of this reason, because you have to have a quota of that, it's elect who's qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's correct.
and hire who's qualified. There's no, if you don't hire who's qualified, you're going to get what we have now because of a quota. And I think the whole era of quota should be, I think it's coming to an end a little bit because people are realizing, well, maybe we should have elected somebody who's more capable, that can actually budget or that knows this instead of just, I need a quota for this and this and
They
this.
check a box.
They check a box. And I know that, a lot of companies have to hire a quota of a different type, whether it be ethnicity or whether it be female, male. And I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been a bulldog just to get where I'm at. And I feel that I never thought myself as a woman was less than anybody else. I never thought I was different. I never went into a meeting going, I'm a woman. I never did. So when they started electing people because of a quota, I was shocked. I'm like, wait a minute. I busted my butt to get where I'm at today so that I was qualified, and all I had to be was, I didn't have to worry about it. But I mean, I can't go run a company that's not an alcohol. I run an alcohol business, which is great, but I've learned that I have to be qualified to run that position. Like you're qualified to run your position. You're qualified to talk about finances. You're qualified to run the new Bandero tequila company. You're qualified to run a business. And, other people are also qualified. And I think a lot of people that I've been talking to are realizing that qualifications matter these days again, right? Because a few years ago they didn't. Am I wrong or?
No.
Well, I mean, hiring anyone based on their gender or race as the motivating factor strips them of the dignity of their individual personhood, right? So that's always been a problem. I think one of the other things, and I understand exactly.
I don't know how to say it.
No.
Right.
The discussion about DEI in particular has led us down that pathway of realizing that you cannot realistically take a person and strip them down to their skin color,
Correct.
Strip them down to their gender, strip them down to this one factor that defines them, because that's not who we are. And everybody has different experiences, culture, values, principles, and it's more fun to get to know the person and find out where they can contribute than it is to try to pigeonhole them and like I said, strip them of their dignity. One of the other things that we're hopefully kind of getting past as a society, and maybe this kind of peaked a little bit with President Obama, is the view that if you only elect this one right person, then everything will be okay.
Right.
There was this
easy solution. Bam.
Right. And there's this messianic view that there is this one person who can save our country. If only we elected that person, we would be okay. If only we had this person as this mayor or this person as our governor, we're going to be a much better society. And the truth is, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier about the resilience of our nation. The best moments of our country have been when the people come together, not when our leaders, when we elect that one person, because there is no one person. It just doesn't exist in politics. And so there are people who can inspire us, and there are people who can create fear in us. I prefer the inspiration.
It's really nice about a program like yours here, your podcast, is it lets the people that watch it, hear it, even hear about it, know there is another way and there is hope. There is goodness still out there. And we're maybe possibly moving in that direction right now. And it's up to we, the people, to make it move. And it's okay to know that maybe what you were told and you thought was right, and you find out it really wasn't. It's okay to say it wasn't. It's okay.
And I really wanted to stress that today. I'm sitting here with both of you today because America does work.
Yeah.
And Andrew and I came from Missouri, Midwest. We came over here. Our dad was a preacher. We have severe dyslexia, Andrew and I. We overcame that. Tried to go to school. Didn't have any money to go to school, college, but I did 3 jobs. Still went to college. No family support. And, homeless here, homeless there, homeless there. America does work. And I think living in Orange County, obviously we have a very high profile atmosphere here. It's totally different than a lot of the country. But the opportunity that Orange County has created for entrepreneurs and for that path is significant here. And I think that if they just duplicated that leadership throughout some of the cities, not just in California, but across the country, it would just be phenomenal for our nation to rebuild that brand of entrepreneurship. And when you graduate or you to go to school, love of family. And I love living in Orange County because you have created this love of family. And I think that a lot of cities are missing that family. And you're a big family guy. You've got 2 beautiful children, a beautiful wife. You're a huge family guy. And I think when there was that movement of taking family out of the scenario and God and all that stuff, just kind of making us, what were we?
Robots.
Robots?
Yeah.
I think that
Easily influenced.
I think bringing, that back to our communities is,
You're
I mean,
right.
I know I shouldn't bring up religion, but
No,
I really,
you're right. You're right.
I think that if we brought back love of family, the camaraderie would be there in a lot of other cities.
I don't
Am I
think
wrong?
it's also bringing back religion. I think what's bringing back is reality. Your family is very important. Your family is the one to love you the
Right.
most, that you'll love the most, is what we should do to raise our future is for our family. And religion, if you take away the word religion, organized religion, just take it away. And I'm sure everyone will agree, and you'll say it by a different name, whether it's a force, whether it's God, whether it's Allah, whether it's divine, creator of souls, there is something there. When
Something
we know
to
there
believe
is
in.
something there to go for that's bigger than all of us,
Yeah.
it definitely helps, you overcome many, many things, and knowing that, hey, we can make changes. There's hope, and there's a greater power than all of us. Very, very important. And a lot of people forgetting that.
Well, when
Because
they
through demonizing, maybe some of the organized religion isn't the way it should be, because everyone has their own trip to get you over. But the feeling of it, that there is something, there's a God, there is a force, there's something much higher than us, is something that people go back to leaving, because there is. Otherwise, it's just like, hey, why should I do it? There's nothing else for me.
Well,
We need that more. We need that.
Absolutely. And
God, come on down.
when they were taking out the, I pledge allegiance to the flag
Stupid.
of the United States of America,
Stupid.
to the republic, that was a flag that I was blessed enough to, we said that, in school. And when they were taking it out, I think a lot of families need a foundation of the continuity of a foundation. And when you start ripping that foundation apart of what our forefathers stood for, what our Constitution stands for, you get people that are confused. They don't know what to believe in anymore. So they start going on TikTok and believing whatever TikTok says.
Yeah.
So when you take out that foundation of love and hope and family and God, or whatever else you want to believe it is, whatever your spiritual power
Exactly.
is, you have a society that is where we are at right now. And I think that if there's a lot of spirituality and a lot of love in the country, and that's why we're building ourselves. That's why we're not gonna fail.
Right.
But there's a lot of lost souls out there. And I hear it every day, kids confused
You're right.
because they're on TikTok all day and there's no foundation.
But it's happening slowly. Example
It
was,
is
you had mentioned
happening again.
earlier, and that was Elon Musk took over Twitter. It wasn't the best.
Twitter.
Sorry, Twitter. Okay, it wasn't.
Twitter?
Yeah. Well, I don't go online, so that's
He doesn't
okay.
have a computer.
I don't even
Or
have email, okay? But that was a great thing, because here, and it wasn't the best business deal in the world. And I'm a businessman, I know these
Yeah.
big deals, right? It wasn't the best business deal, but his motivation was not just the business part. He could change things and give America and the world honesty. Honesty in one of these big companies that control kind of the internet a little bit. That was his big motivation. He could do something, and he was willing to gamble that money out of his own pocket. He had a lot of money, but still, that's a lot of money to gamble, because it was more than a business deal. He knew that it was okay. He could probably turn it around a bit, but he knew that America and the world really needed something like that. That's my personal feeling, that there's that extra goodness in the guy that wanted to do something special. And that's just an indication of some of these other people who may think are just too big to influence are changing.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, what we're dealing with right now is quite a few people trying to undermine a foundation that typically unites a society.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're talking about communities, communities really exist because they have something in common. Oftentimes it's geography, sometimes it's faith. There are things that bind the community together. And in the United States, oftentimes it's our shared history and realizing that, yeah, we started off in an area that did have slavery. We did fight a civil war to end it. We have been moving forward through civil rights and coming together as a society that has continued to go toward that more perfect union. But when you have a group of people, and it's a fairly large group, especially in academia, that have spent a lot of time trying to undermine those foundations to make people confused, to have them question, whether this is a great nation, you start losing that sense of community, that sense of spirit that has really brought us together and, has united us in World War I, World War II, brought us together eventually after the Civil War. But there's a lot about this country that can inspire some pretty amazing stories, but you have to actually know the history first. And you see in California in particular right now in our public schools, they've spent a lot of time up in Sacramento and all the way down trying to revise a lot of that history to make it
taking it out altogether, aren't they?
And sometimes in ways that are really, really hard for parents right now to say, wait, what are you being taught? Like that. And so actually, interestingly enough, during 2020, when all the schools got shut down and everything went to Zoom, and all of a sudden parents started hearing what their kids were being taught, all of a sudden parents took a lot more action and a lot more interest in local school boards, in their local schools, in their PTAs. And you saw a pretty strong pushback, especially here in California, by some of the public teachers unions. But that's something that really matters, is trying to have that foundation. And look, as parents, it's our obligation to make sure that we're trying to create that foundation because. To your point, yeah, I love my family. I mean, I got really lucky meeting my wife, and then we're raising two kids that I'm, incredibly proud of. And I really want to have an environment here in Newport that can foster that same thing. So we actually invest an enormous amount of money into our park system because I want to have that open space. And look, it's already expensive enough to move to Newport, and it's only getting more expensive. I want people to feel like, especially when they have young families, you're welcome. And I also want them to feel like, okay, I can stretch a little bit to get to Newport. It's worth it because
the park system is there.
Yeah, the park system's there. It's safe. It's got good schools, all of the things.
Surfing.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that we have a wide range of experiences in our city.
I call them amenities. We're definitely full of amenities. In
we have amenities. Yep, we do. So, those are those, but you just want to have an environment where someone can make the choice for the family. Where's the right place for us? And I hope they'll choose Newport Beach.
Daily Logic Check.
It's been, for me, and I know that your place is in Los Angeles, and I just want to, I know we're running out of time, but I want to touch a little bit on, your environment up there. When you come down to Orange County, do you feel a different environment? How do you feel when you come to this environment? Is it inviting? I just want to know from your standpoint.
I think it's more prior to coming down here, the feeling I got on what Orange County was all about. Mainly a lot of the news that came out around 2020 during COVID and such, how you guys held your ground, did not hurt people, let entrepreneurs succeed.
Yeah.
That alone made it very exciting for me.
Yeah.
So I would come down, obviously like I came down here, flew out to California, came down for your program today here, and I just felt like I'm going into an area that really cares about the people. That's kind of like the future for America.
Yeah.
Let's take care of the local people. And I think Will just put it so right. You got to think about, what do your people need? How do you make it perfect for your people so they have what they need, not just what politicians or big business needs?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, do you think that, Mayor O'Neill, that we're going to solve homelessness? I mean, obviously with homelessness right now, I just want to touch on this a little bit, is the opioid crisis, right? So we have a lot of addicted homeless, and we have the homeless, right? So if you're homeless and not addicted, there's places where we can house you, and I think Newport Beach has done an excellent job finding and helping those people. Do you think that maybe they might adopt how you're running it here? Because what do we do currently for our homeless here?
Oh, we do a lot. So we actually have teamed up with the city of Costa Mesa on a shelter. So there are people who, if they want a bed, they can have one. We've partnered up with an organization called Be Well, which was actually started by a doctor over at Hoag Hospital that treats mental mental wellness problems.
Okay.
We also have social workers that we pay that through the county. We actually pay an additional amount to make sure that we always have someone in our city so that they can be connected to services. But at the same time, we also use our police department for enforcement, which is kind of our last preference, frankly, but one that you have to have because, Los Angeles County, once they allowed the amount of encampment that they have up there, it's really hard to go back. And so we just don't tolerate encampments in our city. And in particular, because we just don't, there's no dignity. There's no compassion leaving anyone on the street. There's no compassion leaving someone on the street. And so in that particular situation, we've got to make sure that we have carrots and then we have a stick, and the stick, unfortunately, is the police department. So in this situation, you cannot allow signs of permanence because, again, there's no compassion leaving someone on the street. So we've made sure that we actually, interestingly enough, took some of Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, their ordinance, and made sure that there are spheres around areas that are of particular critical importance not to have encampments, schools, preschools.
Yeah, Irvine, you guys cleaned up that strip. What was that by the river or whatever?
Yeah. We had that area. We also had, an area around we actually made sure that we included chemotherapy centers as well, because you can't have people who are incredibly low on their immune system, surrounded by people who oftentimes have been outside for a really long time. And so we've got to, we needed to make sure that we're doing the right thing on the front end, but also making sure that we're cleaning it up as well. So being a beachside community, our homeless population will ebb and flow a little bit with the seasons. So you'll see more people in the summer than you will in the winter. But Michael Schellenberger is a reporter who's widely followed. He wrote a book that I recommend people read called San Francisco, and it's really an indictment of a lot of the policies that an area like San Francisco has made in a lot of areas, but in particular in homelessness. And he is a huge critic of the predominant theory in California, which is housing first. This belief that if only you built enough housing and put people in them, then eventually they would get healthy again. That has not worked in California and has led to that $24 billion expenditure in 5 years, seeing homelessness increase in California while a lot of other states are seeing it decrease.
Right.
Texas.
That's correct. Yep.
So maybe we should have Mobile Loaves and Fishes and all your other Texas. Maybe we should have you guys come here and help us learn how to solve homelessness.
We do have several representatives from other states at Mobile Loaves and Fishes this year. They come to see how the heck we do it and learn. And again, the community did it. Only recently does our state government now want to participate or contribute some money. Because in the beginning we said, we're going to do it, and we did. Now they want us to get even bigger, which is nice.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because in Orange County, for example, you've had the Orange County Rescue Mission for a really long time. And because it's faith-based, there are actually a lot of organizations and governments that'll run away from it and not help out because they say, well, we can't sponsor something that has a faith component to it. Whereas for us, we're just saying, oh my gosh, we would love to just have someone up and off the streets and to your point, contributing back to society, because that's where the dignity starts coming back. I mean, that's where the compassion is getting up and off is helping someone up and off the street.
It's from a human to a human.
Exactly.
It's not just, exactly.
Right. And that's, and to your point about the community coming back around and really putting their arms around someone and saying, hey, we love you, let's go. That is so much more effective than having someone in government, bureaucracy, getting paid no matter what the outcome is.
That is correct.
Because that's something that, the more you have, the more government you have, the less charity you'll get.
So true.
And so we need to have more resilient communities supporting one another through charity and stop having government intrude into that area, because it's killing society.
Well, that's what you did with you said that We the People helped the homeless in Texas.
People, yeah. Ellen Graham started, and We the People just jumped in. But there are a lot of good Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, other churches or religious groups that want to help out as much as they can.
Yeah.
But we really need We the People to really jump in and get the job done and convince our leaders that don't waste the money. I think one of the biggest things I hear about in the news, I figure, what's the matter with you? Are you crazy? They say, let's get these big old hotels or whatever and put people in them. That's putting them in like a jungle. That's putting them in, a ghetto. That's putting them in, projects that aren't nice at all. They're all together, bumper to bumper. There's crime in there. There's drugs. I mean, it's not the answer. It's not freedom.
Yeah.
It's not freedom. Just put them away. Give them a place to live. Give them a food voucher, whatever. They'll be fine. Never the answer.
No, it's not. And you mentioned, Elizabeth, the idea of, we've got a lot of drug addiction. And that's again, that unfortunately, that continues to be a cultural phenomenon. There is a lot about our government, an open border problem that is allowing way too much fentanyl across the border. And so we've got to do a much better job on that front. But as a society, we need to do a much better job making sure that people have drug addiction treatment programs. We do need to make sure that we have a better set of resources to convince people not to even start down that path.
Yeah.
And so we do need to do better, but a lot of that does come from culture. And it's, it's heartbreaking, the fentanyl crisis, because what people don't realize is if you took a penny and covered the Abraham Lincoln's head with the powder, that's enough to have an overdose of fentanyl, just that much powder. And when you have all these drugs where kids are buying, and adults too, but kids are buying pills that they think online from TikTok, Instagram, and social media in general.
Wait,
that they
online?
Yeah.
You can find them online?
Absolutely, because you think you're buying something like Adderall because you want to stay up later to do more studying. You reach out, buy a pill, buy a few pills, and you don't know there's fentanyl in there. We've had it in California where parents hear their child studying late at night, wake up the next morning, and their child doesn't wake up because they did exactly what I just described. If you are buying anything from any,
that just makes me nervous.
Fentanyl is.
What he's saying
they can
so
go
true.
online and they have to put a credit card in.
No, you pay. The drug dealers show up at your house, you pay them in cash, and then you walk away. And so this happens regularly. So I actually just did a fentanyl town hall with our Orange County Sheriff, Don Barnes, where we were talking about this. And, we're doing as much education effort as we possibly can, because fentanyl is not only incredibly addictive and turns people into zombies eventually, but just that little bit of it, if it's just a little too much in a laboratory, oftentimes made in Mexico, if it's just a little too much, it's going to kill you. And we're seeing that all over the place.
Well, you're right. It is a culture. I mean, it's like with the whole fentanyl thing, the opioids, everybody was kind of, our sister is unfortunately homeless, and she's addicted. And we've done everything we can, and she has places to go. And in fact, John Paul and Eloise, we tried to get her into a rehab. It's just not happening.
It is so hard.
It's sad, and heroin and fentanyl and that whole crisis is happening. So when people are like, I touch on homelessness a lot. This podcast, I apologize, but I'm just curious. Like, it's also a drug problem. It's a homeless problem. Even if we get them off the street, they need to go to rehab. They have mental disabilities, and it's such a huge problem. And we're not going to solve it sitting here on this podcast. But I think with leaders like both of you, who, coming here today and speaking real life to real people, it's going to make a difference. And I think, having our audience listen to what you have to say about building that community and sticking with your community and loving your family. And I guess what I'm hearing from you is help out how you can, right? Do what you can, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you.
It's kind of like examples. Right? Will's a great example how to run a community as a mayor, obviously 100% successful. And I could speak up because I was homeless. I was homeless in Los Angeles. I had absolutely nothing, very few pennies, and the American dream happened for me where I became extremely wealthy. And at the same time, I give back millions to take homelessness off the streets and their medical cares. So I could say that I'm right there in the middle of it all, and I know there is hope. There is definitely hope. Yeah. But people have got to jump in. We need a little bit more mayors like Will here, a little more communities to say, it's okay. Let's go along with what we the people need, not just what those that were part of that are much bigger think we need, but we really don't.
Yeah, no, I just feel sitting here with both of you today, and Andrew, we didn't really.
There's hope.
There's hope, and we wanted today. I was like, okay, I want to give people hope, and I think just sitting with you and your positive attitude and who you are in general, I'm just so thrilled you're here. And with John Paul, where you came from, I hope that when they watch this podcast, they can listen to it. And yeah, we talked about some serious issues, but we also talked about hope.
Sure, of course.
And whatever happens with the election, just know that the pendulum is swaying. There is hope, and to keep going. So is there any advice, if you look in that camera, that you would give any entrepreneurs, up and coming, any advice for them?
Oh, take the risk. It's always worth it. But find the community that'll actually reward your risk. It's because the more stability a community has and can create for you, the better off you'll be and the more successful you're more likely to be. So, and if you are really looking for a great community, Newport Beach is the place to start your business. So we would love to have you.
Any advice from you?
Mine would be that America definitely still works. And the two things I'd like to share with you in your personal life or your business life that make things happen really well. Number one is make sure your product or your service or yourself is not in the selling business where you're just trying to sell yourself or sell a product. Make sure you're always in the reorder business where whatever you do today is of pure honesty and you can come across so people will trust you in the future. If you make a product, make sure it's so good, people want to reorder it. The second thing would be is if you switch your ideas away from the main group, you're going to get a lot of rejection. What? You thought this all along and now you're saying we were wrong and the science was wrong. You're not part of us anymore. Be prepared for a lot of rejection if all of a sudden you want to be honest with yourself and with others and read some real science or look at both views. Thing is, look at 2 or 3 different views on something. And if you change your mind, be ready for rejection. Be ready for those that were convinced, no, it's right, even though you know it may have been wrong. Just be ready for that. You don't have to be the judge. You can be the observer without judgment, but don't be afraid. Go forth and there is hope. And we're there. There's many of us like they're out there and we're growing day for day for day.
So today, Andrew and I have a special gift for both of you because I know you can't really accept big gifts.
Yeah.
So Andrew and I were like, okay, so you love Harley Davidsons and you love riding your motorcycles and you love going to parks.
I do.
Okay, I read this about you that you love the American dream and you love your parks. So
Well, I
Luke,
like parks too. Can I go?
oh, you love Can I go? So we decided that maybe one day you might want to ride a motorcycle with John Paul.
Great,
So
sure,
we
that'd
got
be
you
cool.
guys.
Look at this.
We got you guys
cool.
some helmets, and then do you have
that's
do you have
cool.
the masks?
That's pretty good.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
helmet, by the way.
Yeah, you like that?
Look
You
at
like
this.
that?
Aviator goggles. These
Yeah,
are
we got
so
some
cool.
goggles for you guys, and we also have a little.
These are cool.
Are those cool or what?
I don't know where you got it, but
These are great.
look at this on that.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I love it.
That's right. That
But
was
these
right.
are cool.
I love it.
Oh, these are.
And
This
then,
is a good helmet.
wait, Luke. Peyton's got one more thing for you. We got you
cool.
guys. It's not really a mask; it's for flies. But
Yeah.
there you go.
how
we got you.
fun.
I got you some
No,
Harley.
yeah,
What are
this
those
is,
called?
yeah.
They're
You
called,
know.
Actually, yeah, the way this
Gators?
works.
There you go, Gators.
yeah.
Exactly.
Look at that.
Now, if it was during COVID, I mean,
Well, I mean, I didn't mean it for that. But
riding,
Oh, see, I know
riding
you're.
a motorcycle.
Oh my God, yes, now for
Riding
sure.
a motorcycle is to keep the dust out of your air. That's what these are for.
oh my gosh,
And then,
I
of
love
course,
it.
That's
You've
funny.
got your
Thank you,
eyes.
Luke. Thank you,
You protect
Peyton.
your nose, your mouth
Oh
from
my
all the
gosh.
dust, the smog.
You're ready
There
to
we
ride.
go. There we
You're
go.
ready to
Wait a
ride.
minute.
We're ready to go. Let's go.
Ready to ride.
We're ready to go. Come on.
Well,
Will.
thank you both for
Jump
being
on our
here.
bikes.
Thank
You're
you for
welcome.
watching this
Speed,
episode
love,
of
and
Daily
happiness.
Logic. We hope you've learned something. We hope you take away today what we've taken away, which is there is hope. Peace, love, and happiness. Thanks for being here.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Daily Logic Check.
Thank you for watching Daily Logic Check. If you're loving the show, click like, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Peace, love, and happiness.
Daily Logic Check.